Real people, real stories, and real challenges that break the status quo. I'm your host, Zivile, and welcome to Perception Paradox. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to Perception Paradox, and today I have with me here two wonderful people, not one this time. I think it's the first episode where I'm making with two people, and it's Ksenia and Stewart, but they're going through life hand in hand. And I don't know, welcome guys to Perception Paradox.
Hey, thank you. We're so happy to be here.
Great to see you. So we've been having these conversations to have a chat for ages, and finally we made it. And Ksenia and Stewart is very active in the startup scene. And I don't know, I've just kept meeting them in all the different events. They're always on top of their game, where they are a lot in startup realities, a lot up in Web3 and all the different interesting fun stuff. Stewart used to have also a podcast. It's all about media, journalism. Their life is surrounded communication. So I don't know, maybe tell me what you've been up to, guys.
Okay. Well, you start first, Ksenia.
Yeah, first of all, finally we made it to Perception Paradox, and I feel like a little personal story here. Of course, when we were 1 year ago almost in Barcelona, and you just said about this concept, and at that time, Confusion and Joy was born too as a concept and putting things in action. So I feel like we even matched in our shifts in life, to actually progress and reconnect in a year time, and actually take the Perception Paradox even more forward. So, I'm Ksenia Stark. I'm a chaos architect and co-founder of Confusion and Joy. I'm also a partner, growth and fix facilitator at C3, and also taking a few advisor role on Web3 startups. And my background comes from digital marketing, brand strategies, more than 10 years, starting in the Netherlands. I was, this kind of like regular marketing role of managing channels, strategy, e-commerce, influencer marketing, email marketing, you name it. So all this kind of, I call them already buzzwords, but, at that time and still until today, that's considered to be kind of like regular marketing processes. And I always felt that there is something more behind marketing as a word, as a strategy. So I started digging into some regulated industries like financial markets. At that time, it was Forex, gambling. I went into telecom, and I was working for almost 2 years for a telecom entertainment company, also managing markets. So it's more like, understanding the platforms, tech overview. We had different products from, entertainment gaming platforms to sports to fashion. And it's basically content served on mobile. And of course, when you're deep diving into a tech of marketing and understanding of, what is this landscape? How can you reach your audience? And what are the parties even involved in it? That's where I understood that most of that budgets that being reported by, IAB, even, every year, like 300 billion, 400 billion, spent on digital ad campaigns. And I was like, where the fuck does money go? Where do they go? And that's when I understood that the landscape has been shaped as a Web2, right? Platform economy. So I started my entrepreneurial journey back in 2019, and I started a media tech startup in Estonia, trying to change the way we do advertising. So I was focusing for 4 years to, figure out a new tech approach. That's how I also got in Web3, and, all this change was also kind of, laying within my heart, because we saw this new tech stack, new tools that can actually enable a new economy. And we were looking at, technological connection, digital identity solutions, so that users can finally get rewarded for the data, but also the sustainability of content, because not everything is about tech, and we do strongly believe it's not. It's the way you serve content. And of course, manipulative strategies do come from digital advertising, because you're kind of stuck in a loop of, like, oh, I need to spend more to get more, you're just basically in this kind of spending machine, and more budgets being allocated towards it, which is not sustainable. And at some point, I also focused on the impact topics. So I was a co-founder of LGBTQIA plus community, using immersive technologies. We were doing Pride campaign in the metaverse, building community, educating people on DEI. So what does, true DEI mean, and how can we gather people and simulate this diverse and inclusive environment in the metaverse? And I think that's when we met with Stewart in Estonia. And that's also something how we connected, based on this intention to help the world understand DEI and bring that to the business strategies. And yeah, we'll give you maybe a bit of a word on your story, and then we can tell our joint story, how it intersected.
Nice.
Yeah, so I'm Stuart Rogers. I started out actually as an independent video game developer back when I was very, very short, shorter than I am now. And in fact, I had my first two video games out and published and was making money at the tender age of 12 years old.
That's impressive.
Then I went into business software and I ran my first software house, which is what we used to call startups, but startups is catchier. Back when I was 21. That was a disaster because I was 21 and I didn't know what the hell I was doing. It made good money and it paid everyone's wages for a couple of years, but then it had to go. And so I went into sales and marketing right at the sharp end, learned my craft. I was an IT director at the biggest privately owned book publishing company in the UK for a while to learn the tech side of things as well. And then I went back and I started another software house, and it was incredibly successful. And then another one, which was very successful, and another one, and another one. I think it was 8 in a row. My last startup, as we then had changed the name, was picked up by VentureBeat, the big tech news publication, as an exclusive. They wrote the exclusive on it, on the launch of it. At the same time as all of that, I was doing a philanthropic venture because I was making good money from software houses. But I didn't leave my video game past behind. I actually created a news website for PlayStation News that gave all of the money it made from advertising and anything else we could use to get money to charity. And a whole load of amazing junior and senior video game journalists joined and donated their time for free so we could make more charity money. And that was doing really well. We were making sometimes $100,000 plus dollars a year and giving it to charity. That actually became one of the world's most popular PlayStation News websites. So when VentureBeat covered my last startup, I found out that the journalist was always also building something within VentureBeat called VB Insight, which is a research arm of VentureBeat. And I was actually more excited about VB Insight than I was about the startup that they'd covered. So I left my startup and I joined VentureBeat. I became a staff writer. I helped run VB Insight with John Coots here. We turned that into a 7-figure business in the first year. So it was incredibly successful. Then I, carried on writing for other publications. I moved my editorial from VentureBeat to Data Economy, where I'm still editor at large. I write for Hackanoon and various other publications still. But I was also doing another startup, and when I met Ksenia and we matched on values with each other and we were working together. And then, I invited you to come to Finland to hear a couple of keynotes I was doing. We stayed in Finland a while, and that's where we fell in love. We also left our various co-founders and created Confusion and Joy.
Yeah.
And,
that was, I think it was a funny kind of match for us. So, of course, sometimes as a founder, you're creating your baby, you don't want to live it, but then you just don't know that you are surrounded with the wrong people.
Yeah.
And that's fine. It's always a learning curve. Like, me, myself, when I started, I had almost zero network, in the startup world or funding world or anything, kind of new. And it was COVID too. So that was fun. The benefit of COVID was that, the New Nordic Leads was actually the first online accelerator by FIBAN and SBAN. And we were one of the startups that they also accepted. So that was really exciting to connect with the network on distance, learn, even though we couldn't travel. So I would see like good and bad. But one of the things that I think we've been doing is always trying to solve things with technology. And I think that's where perception paradox comes in, as Like, what are we trying to solve in the world? Why do we have so many startups? So many. And it's like every second person is a founder of a startup. And not everything is adding the value of it. So that's where we came to Confusion and Joy as a impact creator house. And funny enough, when we start talking about it, the first question comes through, oh, are you building a platform? And we're like, no. And that's exactly what we are not doing.
Yeah.
We connect creators of all kinds, whether it's artists, musicians, dancers, coders, metaverse architects. For us, creators are the people that are actually using, the creative part of a brain. So they're not really strategic or structured in some way. There are outliers, as we know. It's not that it's not possible. We call ourselves outliers, as we are creators too. So Stewart is a multi-singer-songwriter and can play any instrument, can't draw, but can draw digitally, you know. I'm more the digital side of the content creation, of course, but it's basically helping people to connect with the right people around, because you don't have to be a human orchestra to do things. And creators are very important. They are actually the ones that have been carrying the message of culture impact throughout centuries. And they're the ones that can enable some change, the change for this creative world, but also the way that brands communicate their messages. So Impact Creator House is about it. It's connecting creators with brands to activate impact, to unlock the impact potential on both sides through virtual physical activations. We can talk about a little bit like this, strategic consulting, which is more from a consulting world. So you would see a kind of way of, as people call, agency, but we don't call ourselves agency, because we only work with people we want to hug. We only work with people that match with us on values and intentions.
Yeah.
So we can create an ecosystem of people that are standing for the same, maybe doing something very different, that you would never connect this to people or three people and say, hey, did you actually have something in common? But the impact is a key word here, for sure.
Yeah, agencies are a very supplier-client relationship, and you hope once you've got some money from them as a client and you've supplied something nice that they'll do it again with you. But when people work with us, we put them in our ecosystem, and then we imagine ways that they could work with the other people in the ecosystem, or we find opportunities for them to, increase, their revenues, their profits, most importantly, and all the way down the chain, whether it's the brands, whether it's us, or whether it's the creators that we bring all together. We make sure that everyone is making authentic impact all the way down the chain, because that's the big deal.
Interesting. Thank you for sharing for such an extensive overview of your backgrounds. And it's really funny, Ksenia, that you mentioned that literally 1 year ago when we met, and you were literally also just starting with your Confusion and Joy. And yeah, a beautiful moment to remember it, actually. That the moment we met, I was just about to launch it, and it was even not live yet. So that's insane in beautiful Barcelona. But you touch base on very interesting topics, right? You're trying to build the ecosystem. You're mentioning creators, which creator is such a broad term. Yes, you have your own definition, but when it comes to the ecosystems, right, from also being around for quite a long time, there are the word is very much used a lot. There are different ecosystem, local, global, the same Silicon Valley, right? It's one of the kind of guiding pillars still, especially for the European founders, when it comes to the growth and scalability. Where does your work and network, what you're trying to build in, falls into this whole blueprint and scheme for entrepreneurs worldwide?
Yeah, I think the word ecosystem is used incorrectly in a lot of ways. We can't call Silicon Valley an ecosystem, because while some people want to call it that, Silicon Valley is a group of competitors. And an ecosystem is not a group of competitors. An ecosystem is a group of collaborators. So every time there's a startup, they're trying to work out how to beat all the others that do what they do. And most of the time they're too late. to be honest. I mean, when tech people talk to tech people, they always seem to come up with the same problems. They always seem to come up with the same solutions. There's not really a lot of innovation happening at all. And depending upon which analyst you believe, somewhere between 95 and 99% of all startups that are created using the Silicon Valley business development model fail within year one. It's this sort of structure where you come up with an idea after leaving Stanford, and your idea is great, and somebody on the team's a good storyteller, and they convince an old boy of their youth and get $175 million for a juice product. And then they realize that actually they can't develop it, or it wasn't really that good idea, or it was the 700th version of something that already exists. Or this fallacy of, yeah, we got this amazing tool that's just like Google, but it does one thing better than Google. So we're going to get the whole marketplace because they'll all come to us. All of these things are just terrible, for the industry. People don't do market research anymore and figure out what is needed, whether they can make it for less than people want to buy it for, so they make a profit. Build, grow organically, get success behind them, and then maybe if you need to take it to the rest of the world, you can scale and get some funding. We're doing things all the long way around. For us, ecosystems are collaborative, not competitive. If you're competing with everybody else, then you're not in an ecosystem.
And I think that, when we think of the startups and the way that they are learning about how to be a startup, they forget that they need to start with an operational business model. And that's where we also come in as, some kind of consultants, but we also as friends, we try to help on those founders understand their purpose, their intention, their added value, to align also with the whole team on that, and then understand how can you make it without fundraising. And it doesn't mean that you should never fundraise, right? There is always a place and a time for a different type of activity. But most of the time, the startups are building something that they don't build with people, so they build themselves. So they completely miss out on, again, market research and also community strategy. Build everything with your stakeholders, understanding the ecosystem itself, and we call it stakeholder mapping, when you're really understanding not only who is your client, who is your partner, who is your investor, who can be just a collaborator, so really having this understanding of what is the core for your business to thrive, whether it's with funding, without funding, just really understanding the pathways. It's something we came up at C3 project, which is actually unifying the whole ecosystem of female-led and non-binary-led projects in Web3 and communities. We talk about pathways, creating a pathways for each other and finding where those pathways connect with others. And when we talk about impact, for example, DEI or sustainability or, cultural impact, you can find so many different bodies that are actually involved in it. And it's not always only tech. It's not always just artists or science. They're all together working towards the same goal in their bubbles. So we are here to connect the bubbles, to bridge the people that thought that they would never talk or they have nothing in common,
And have you heard of the term dog fooding?
Nope.
Dog fooding means eating your own dog food. If you're a company that makes backup products, and then you fail to back up any of your own systems, and then you go out of business because you didn't have any backups, you're not eating your own dog food, right? So we eat our own dog food. We believe in collaboration, cooperation, direct communication. We believe in communities and ecosystems. So much so that we don't believe in what we turned the internet into, which is the world's fastest supermarket checkout, and manipulating people into buying things as much as possible, as quickly as possible, by gamifying websites with, carousels where you get a discount.
Spinny codes.
Sign up with your email address to get 20% off your order. Don't worry, we didn't accidentally put our prices up 20% in the first place, so we're still selling you at the same price. No, we'd never do that. All of these things that people do, all these tricks. We've got no website to speak of, just a very basic landing page. We don't really do much social media. We don't do email newsletters. We don't do advertising. We don't do any of those things. We show up to something that we've been asked to create or co-create. We show people through our actions who we are, and invariably 2 or 3 people who are there see who we are, like who we are, and ask if they can talk to us about doing that for them too. And since August last year, the inception of all of this, both perception paradox and confusion of joy. Since August of last year, we've done activations and experiences at Art Basel Miami, Berlin Pride, 3 events during World Economic Forum, Global Sales Tech Festival the day before Mobile World Congress. We did Longevity Week in Berlin. We did a conscious nightlife event in the most unconscious nightlife city in the world. We then expanded that to a conscious rave in Cologne, which was sold out. And we're doing more and more and more, and we're strategically advising Icono TV, which is like Netflix for impactful environmental movies, which they're shown at COP, and Slow Art, and Factiverse, which is patented AI fact-checking solution that's so good and fast it live fact-checked the Biden-Trump debate. And we're doing all of that with none of the Web2 things, none of the advertising things, none of the competition things.
So how do you get your clients? How do you start working with the clients?
Yeah, I think here we always think of word of mouth as a term that people understand. But yeah, it's basically the way we started is just following the flow of, people that were interested in the concept, and then, of course, doing all this like virtual and physical activations. That's where we were meeting our people.
Yeah.
And they were on spot seeing who we are and what we do, and then expressing interest. So it was all about spreading the word to the people that we believed would resonate, for real with what we are doing and truly changing for creators as well as the strategies, because this is a kind of double-edged sword, like you never understand why would you use creators or how would you attract them. And we are basically building these communication bridges. And through those bridges, we are finding also new people that are, interested in either in our advice or running some campaign, whether virtual or physical or end-to-end event production. And we call it experiences because everything becomes an experience, like you can create experience for people on spot, virtually, or connected digital experiences as well. So just, keeping, our hearts open. And as we said, in the end, we work with people we want to hug. We really match with them. They're our friends, like yourself too. It's really another level of connection that we build. And that's where organic growth can be unlocked, because we always say we're not here to tell you how to get the biggest, fastest result in a short period of time, and you will never get out. So you will always spend more and more. So we're here to advise on the core of your business, on the core of your community. And that's what we've done with us, because right now we do have this ripple effect of people coming and talking and coming back with the references, because you want to build your core ecosystem in a way that people really would recommend you, that they would come and ask themselves. You can never go and hunt yourself, it's kind of like running and asking and knocking all the doors. So we always like that you would knock doors, but if they're not opening and the next is not opening, is something not right,
Yeah.
So, and we do see this ripple effect already with confusion and joy, more artists, more projects for advisory, or more events that want our experiential approaches too. So it's, I think that this is a positive sign when you really understand you're standing with what you believe in. It's backed by science, because we know the 6 degrees of separation of humanity, how you can get towards that unlock, so it's a multi-dimensional work of marketing that's done. But
and it's the opposite to what people are doing in startup land. There's an obsession with, we'll build it and then we're going to scale really fast. we'll use social advertising, cost per install, cost per action, all this kind of stuff. There's an obsession with that. People have forgotten how to create successful businesses. And, the 8 software houses I ran in a row were successful. Didn't take a cent of anyone else's money in any of them. And in fact, didn't even open the company until we did the market research to work out if we were building something people wanted. And we asked them how much they'd pay for it. And if we could make it for less than they pay so that we made profit from the first sale, we then opened up the company. And, people have forgotten how to do these things. There's such an obsession with the Silicon Valley model. But as a reminder, as we said not so long ago, with a 95 to 99% fail rate in year one, why are we all copying that model?
Okay, very good question. I have few questions to follow up on that. So you mentioned a lot about these tactics you're using, right? For growth, for attracting people, the right people to work with. Can you be more specific? What kind of virtual or on-site techniques, tactics are you using to expand your business and to grow it? Because at the end of the day, it is a matchmaking, but you're building a business, right?
We're using this amazing thing called AI, which is actual intelligence, as opposed to the
Okay.
other AI, which is artificial intelligence, or the other AI, which is Apple intelligence. We don't even think about that one. Or what's the other AI? There's so many AIs, but the actual intelligence one is the one. In fact, you look at our website and that very meager page that we've got up there actually says, we're not AI. Yeah, that's the point. We go to a conference. Why do we go there? Well, maybe it's a conference where we know our people are going to be, and we want to meet with them and get caught up with the latest. Because for me, a lot of conferences are just like the world's biggest co-working space for that day, where we've all flown in to be there. So therefore, that saves us a lot of trouble in terms of flying everywhere to see people. We know everyone's going to be in the same place, like a Web Summit. Let's go to Web Summit, because then we can meet everyone in one place over a space of a few days. Or we go because we've been asked to speak, or we go because we've been asked to curate or co-create an experience or several experiences at that event. And then, as I said, it's down to us being authentically us, and people will like that, and they'll talk to us. That's how it happens. I know it's not a big tech solution or a platform solution or, a CRM or an email marketing campaign with personalized, input in the email marketing campaign with a video that's produced by Synthesio so that it sounds like it's me talking to you with your name in the video and all this kind of stuff. But that's not needed.
That's
all
not
of that
me.
is
It's
actually
just a video.
distraction from finding your people. Finding your people is about showing who you are through your actions.
That's the tagline.
Words are cheap.
We use this tagline right now for a lot of things, actually. Show who you are by your action. And if you are in the event where everything is hectic and you don't have your people and you still have your brand, you just need to figure out your personal brand positioning and how to stand out. And, when you go to some Web3 conferences, a lot of people are coming dressed up as they're coming on a festival, and that's great.
That's
because,
fun.
that's fun. We need to be able to self-express ourselves. And of course, considering that we are often invited to curate, whether it's a section of the event or we have the full curation there, this is where we also show who we are, because that's something we do. We're there for people. Other people see us. And I always say the best way to sell is not to sell.
Yeah.
When you're not even thinking to sell or thinking of a number, transactional number, you're just there because you want to be there in that moment with those people. And that's where the magic happens. It's people are just curious and attracted to talk to you or to connect. And it's not like sometimes you connect and you start working together, it's not always like this.
Yeah.
But you can, I'm confident about that. When you know your personal brand and how does it correlate to what you do, whether, it's a bigger setup of a company and you have this super aligned and you know how to stand out, and not through just, adding logo on the event or a booth, but showing really something more interesting and experiential, or creating your own experience. Like people gamify things, they give these things to people. So I see a lot of attempts of those, not organized by an event, but by people. And I think that's always fun to encourage such an environment to express yourself. And that's how you will find your people who would want to work with you, maybe now or later, but at least it's your people and you're sure that this is the vibe that can create a long-term collaboration rather than short money. But then you don't earn money from one client. You earn money from the constant client that is with you for years. This is your earnings.
And from the raving fans that become part of your community that feel like they're part of your story because you're having a two-way, conversation with them and building that community and fostering that community, rewarding and recognizing that community. That will automatically build raving fans for you. They'll scream from the rooftops about you without being asked to or bribed. If I look at an example of the old way and the new way, with some big names for you, you've got the likes of Revolut, who say, invite a friend and you could win up to €200. And then the list of things your friend has to do within the time scale they give you, usually the friend can't complete all the tasks within the time that you were given, so nobody wins anything. And it's up to 200. They make it sound really attractive in the tiny notification and in the app, but then you realise, this was really just a friend referral sweepstake, and you end up getting €5 instead because you didn't win the big prize. Look at it from a different perspective. Even though Red Bull started out by marketing Red Bull, very catchy can design, and they advertised it with cartoons. Red Bull gives you wings and all these funny cartoons. They've now shifted to an entirely experiential growth marketing tactic. They sponsor the world first time doing this trick, the world's first wingsuit through a rock, through a hole in a rock.
Oh yeah.
The longest glide, on a paraglider through the longest tunnel. It's Red Bull because you see the logo, but it's the experience they're marketing, because they've worked out that their market is either people who do extreme sports or people who want to be that cool. And so they show cool shit, and then people go, I connect Red Bull with cool shit. Red Bull must be cool. I'll get some. And their sales have hockey sticked ever since they switched to an experiential marketing campaign, building a community and showing people who their actions, or through the actions of others, who they are, as opposed to words, advertising, social media, etc.
Yeah, Red Bull is one of the great examples, right? How to integrate creators and build experiences, and we started from the just energy drink. But what about other more technology startups, right? Silicon Valley has this blueprint. Everyone is following the path. We have some specific rules in the game, how you have to pitch, how you have to fundraise. If you look into all the pitch decks and pitches, there is all this very well rehearsed blueprint. Oh, this is John, this is Anna. They've been experiencing this problem. No. You know what I'm talking about, right?
Yeah.
So do you have any examples, more practical, when it comes to different business models that did not follow a Silicon Valley blueprint, but they still really built a successful global company and scaled fast?
I have a comment on that first, which is,
please go ahead.
You just said there's a template. We know there's a template. I'd like to ask people why they quite often don't actually use the template.
That sounds a good one.
Yeah.
As a journalist, and I still am a journalist in the tech industry, I get asked to judge those pitch competitions a lot. And I've seen tens of thousands of pitch decks, and it boggles my mind that people don't say, here's the problem, here's our solution, and here's why it's a market that is attractive. But really, what are investors? If you are wanting to go for investment, what are investors looking for? In most of the studies done of investors, the number one thing they're looking for is the team. The number two is trust, and the number three is traction. If number three is traction, why is everybody trying to go for money before they've built anything, done anything, and got anyone paying for it? And your team is incredibly important. Trust comes from being able to show that you are who you say you are, and you can create what you say you're going to create. We have lots of solutions that, because there's a great storyteller on the team, and because they come from the right university, they can get the money for an idea. But we have to stop that. We have to start building at least an MVP and have some people using it, even in beta, and show that it works and show that there's a real problem that hasn't already been solved 700 times, because that happens a lot. I remember when we were beginning to wrap up VB Insight, one of the last reports we did was on mobile analytics products, and there were 768 of them in the market at that time. This was back in about 2018, 2019. 768 mobile analytics solutions, yet everyone uses either Google Analytics or Mixpanel and don't use any of the others. Why? Why are people solving the same damn problems all the time? Let's talk to people outside of the tech industry, talk to people in different walks of life and try and get some different problems to solve, and then see if technology has an answer to that. But really it comes down to, first of all, build something, even an MVP. Second of all, make sure people use it. In fact, my rationale is you should make sure people want to use it before you even build the MVP. And make sure that you've got the right team. That's not easy. It's so easy in startup land to just grab a bunch of people because they're available, and then you go and you come up with an idea, and then you go and get funding, and you realize you can't work with each other. It's like living with another person. You don't realize that they leave the toilet seat up and they're really dirty and everything else until you live with them, right? And you have to do all of that first, and then if you are getting traction, if you're already making a profit, and you think it's something that will scale, or you think there's a particular culture or country that it's going to work really well in, and you've done a bit of market research to back that up, then by all means go and get some investment. At that point, you can show that you've got a great team, you have traction, and they can trust that you have the solution to this problem.
Mm-hmm.
Then
and
you can build
slow down.
Slow
the hell down. I think it's an advice for the whole humanity. It's like everyone is rushing to be the next this big guy, or everyone wants to be already somewhere here, but they're completely missing out on all these important steps, which takes patience to build a team, even to check that your team is actually the one that will make it even, and it takes maybe months to figure it out. And of course, coming back to the template that Stewart a little bit outlined, the steps and the processes, which have been known before Silicon Valley, is just this whole thing flipped, and because they saw that, oh, this is how I can do that, then I will do it as, because that's how it works, but actually it's not. Hence the fail rate is so high, and, so few people just get to year 3, like 30% out of this 1%. I mean, this is a crazy numbers. But that's where I think it's interesting to look at the learnings of fashion industry and the learnings of Web3, because that's where you could see communities that are coming together based on interest to build something, and actually try to crowdfund and build it together. That's why decentralized autonomous organizations came in place, because this process needs to be more vivid. It needs to be dynamic. You can't just, of course, you still can do this thing of like, oh, I built the MVP and now we have this customer reviews, and then we compensate them, or maybe let's gather letters of intent that my solution will be used. This will help me fundraise. It still kind of has a place to be, but I feel also that when you're actually having this core community, stakeholders, mapped out, understanding of two company examples from each of stakeholder type, connect to them and start having a joint conversation, and start having conversations with your competitors. It's a very important step, because you also need to understand what is an ecosystem you are tapping into. Most of the people come of like, competitor analysis, this is my solution, this is the rest, it's like mine is already here, and these are my competitors. And then this is not your competitors, these are your stakeholders too, because they're actually talking to the market. They may talk to the same people you want to talk, and you need to understand why are you tapping in. And if you have such a big added value, they need to also understand that value and incorporate you. Otherwise, it's a little bit different, mindset in the game.
Imagine if you want to be the thought leader in a particular niche, if you're the one that creates the association that brings in all of the other people in that niche and scientists to help back up what that niche is doing, and other interested parties, and people who want to shout from the rooftops. Like, imagine you create an association and bring all those people together. Who's the person that looks now like the thought leader? The one who's fighting all their competitors, or the one that brought all competitors together so that you can all educate that niche market with a collective amount of capital? Because one thing I can promise you is if you do actually find something new and build a startup on it, and maybe there's one other or two other people that are doing it, you're all going to burn through a lot of capital educating the potential audience to your solution. But collectively, instead of trying to get the biggest market share or a tiny little cupcake that is your market right now, you can all collectively turn that into a big pie and take a fair market share each, and all have amazing businesses. And the one that's going to look like the thought leader is the one who said, you know what, let's all come together and actually solve this collectively.
Yeah. And if, like, maybe an example, like, I love following Dutch brands, local brands. They have been kind of like building slowly. And we have like Stiglitz, we have Olaf, we love the Finnish brand Marimekko too. Yeah. These are like the brands that actually got the essence of brand itself as a positioning, what you stand for, the values, kept consistency over years with these values, creating amazing sustainable collections and sharing how they do it. Like Stiglitz themselves, I know them for several years. I've been buying from them for the first collection, and they had little collections bigger. They had events for the people. They're explaining why they're using certain materials, why there are certain patterns. So you become a part of the story. And recently they launched even a loyalty program, which is Web2 loyalty program, but it works. I just understand that they actually got it. Like this digital passports that, like product service, product oriented companies are, thinking about, like, how can my consumer or my partner become a real part of what I'm creating? So they're, launch this digital passport that gives you access to, their stories, their exclusive events, like only for members, and just really creating this, group of people who are truly interested in being with you. So that's really good examples. And Marimekko too, I mean, they're also collaborating a lot with artists, which is fantastic. Is the brand, you don't have to explain why artists will make a difference. They just know and they leverage it for good. They're big supporters of Pride event in Helsinki every year. They have their own event in Finland and Tokyo every year, like a huge celebration of their brand. And people love it because of what they've done, because of what kind of people they are. And this is inspiring. And that's why we always say it's such an interesting game of ego and impact. So a lot of startups come and they start using the word impact, because otherwise, why are you building what you're building if you're not making an impact on a group of people or, society, environment, etc., culture. And a lot of people say, I do it for impact, but they're competing, they're not ready to collaborate. You do see they're not ready. They position themselves as thought leader because also I think this is a dark net of social media. Everyone is an influencer and they think they have something to say, and they have their selfie sticks and light, and they're just recording complete nonsense sometimes. It's not backed by anything. And this is like a big problem because, like, stop your ego game and actually start thinking, am I or my product or a service adding any value at all to society, to environment, to an ecosystem that I'm tapping into? If it's not, it's a road nowhere. It may work for some time, right? Everything is temporary. Like, people need to experiment. People need to go through some certain experiences. But, being sober and kind of shifting your mind from like acting, like being conscious entrepreneur, right? We talk a lot about conscious leadership, conscious entrepreneurship, conscious consumerism. It's like actually really embracing who you are, and with every action you stand for humanity rather than your own interest.
And these things all sound completely reasonable to people like us who are, maybe slightly left of centre towards the left, but they're also reasonable if you're slightly right of centre or more right. Because if you think about it, if we make the planet better, if we give more people more available money, make sure they're healthy, make sure they live longer, make sure they're happier, mentally happier as well as physically happier. Guess what? There'll be people who have more available money to spend, healthier so they can spend it more often, mentally healthier so they feel good about spending it. Anyone who's slightly right towards the right who thinks about power, money, greed. If we do all these things that actually help us to save the planet and make people better, they all benefit as well because people will be able to spend more money on their stuff and give them more power and feed their greed. So actually, the long play here is not to keep on spending money just to buy a customer and hope that they buy again one more time and look at your churn rates and all this kind of stuff. The smart long play is to show authentically through your actions who you are, make an impact and be able to back that impact up. So we're not talking about changing your logo to a rainbow or to a Black Lives Matter version of your logo or all that sort of stuff when you've got a terrible history of looking after Black people or LGBTQ plus people, right? Be authentic in your impact. Show if people dig deep that you really authentically do care. Build your community and foster that. Build your ecosystem and lead that. And guess what? You won't need to keep buying a new client for a one-off bargain. You'll have people going out there, bringing new clients in for free, staying with you, telling you what to develop next so that they can give you more money. All these things work for any part of the socio-political spectrum or ideology spectrum.
And how do you define impact?
Authentic. It could be cultural impact. It could be economic impact. It could be any kind of impact. The most important thing is it's part of your values. You believe in it. You think that we need to do something to support or improve or make a difference in, and then you need to do through your actions every damn day the things that will lead towards positive impact in the area of your choosing. It doesn't
like
matter.
Positive influence.
Yeah. You got to live it and breathe it. You got to eat your own dog food.
Yep, help people around. If it's environmental, of course, again, coming back to stakeholder ecosystem, you need to understand how does, the current setup bring the impact, whether it's even, UN or Greenpeace or, going into the whole infrastructure, and how would you tap in as a business? And some of the projects that we see can be really, really impactful in their local areas. And that's important because a lot of emerging like refi projects coming from Mexico and Brazil, and this is amazing because, it's not that they're focusing on the whole world initially, but they're creating something meaningful in regeneration economy on their land, which can be applied to, Asian part of the world, for example. So there are some relations towards it. But if you really don't have any, conscious impact to make, whether you don't know even if it will lead to any improvement, financially, mentally, culturally, and you can't explain it, most likely you're not making it.
Could be. I have one more question for you guys. You're both in Web3, right? And you've been there since I know, Stewart, you've been since the beginning there, kind of. And you also, Ksenia, spent quite a lot of time. So what's happening right now? What, in general, as someone who is not really involved into it, what can we expect? Where should someone start digging in to pay attention? And maybe what's the state of being and where are we heading with that? Because now I see it as two different kind of divisions, right? Oh, I'm in Web3. And then for many people I talk to who is not aware about that or is not part of the community, it's a very distant and alien thing. Maybe you can put it and break it down into a more simple way where we are. What's the future? Are we going to fully move at some point just to Web3 or not?
I'll start with a contrarian answer because I am.
Go.
And then Ksenia can give you a real answer.
Okay, go for it.
The contrarian answer is Web3 right now is just everything that we've been doing in Web2, but with different technology. And so we did turn the internet from what it was originally created for, which is knowledge sharing amongst humans at great distances very quickly. That was what it was designed for. The original internet was, if you go all the way back down to ARPANET, and the origins of the internet was about connecting universities so they could share knowledge, and then to the rest of the world to share knowledge, and then we turned it into the world's fastest supermarket. I don't know if you've ever been to an Aldi or a Lidl in Germany.
I've been to.
But yeah. The women on the cash machines. I'm saying women because they invariably are quite kind of famous in Germany. The Kassafraus. They literally are throwing products through there so fast. Like, you're not supposed to even pack it at the till like you do in other countries. You're supposed to put it straight back in the shopping trolley and move to the side and pack it separately. They'll throw a can of peas at your chest so hard it'll break 3 ribs. Like, that's how quick it's going. And that's what we've done with Web2. And now, if you listen to the big corporations on Web3, some of them have a different version of Web3 to others. Some are saying Web3 is about AR. Well, guess what? They're developing, or they have developed AR glasses, and that's what they want to sell. So therefore, Web3 is about AR. Some tell us it's about the metaverse. Guess what? It's because they're building a metaverse product, or have done, and that's what they want to sell. Some tell us it's about DeFi and refi and sci-fi and whatever.
Sci-fi.
Sci-fi is a new term.
French fries and all this. Actually, I think it's like whatever you say, you put in a box, you mix, and you can serve it as Web3 because no one has any clue what's happening.
Now, Web3, if we're changing from Web2 to Web3, what we propose is that Web3 should not be about the technology at all. The technology at all times, even the latest, greatest AI tools, they are tools for the job. So what's the job? For us, we call it the C of change. Let's get rid of the old C, which is competition, and let's make Web3 about collaboration, cooperation, direct communication, co-creation, all of the good C's. Let's make it about all the good C's, and then the technology is just the tool to do the job, right?
Yeah, because in the end, Web3 came as this new breakthrough, for people to remember why internet came into place and how we can reinvent and redirect resources, avoiding this huge intransparency from platforms because you just don't know, how much they earn. Is it even fair share? But they're using your data. So do we have to be compensated as users? So how it can be reshaped? Of course, Web3 gave a big hope. And of course, from technical standpoint and scientific standpoint, nothing has changed. It is an umbrella term for a lot of technologies that come together. And it's including 5G, spatial computing, edge computing, and then you come to all this metaverse, immersive tech, because XR is also there, right? And blockchain and crypto as a currency. So digital identity, it's all still kind of, fragmented. And there are attempts of bringing it together, but it hasn't happened yet. And when you look at the honest state of Web3, it isn't just a capitalism on blockchain, because we did want people to become kind of democratic and have a voice, but it still resulted in, people with money and power bought the most of the tokens and are controlling what's happening inside communities. So even if you join like a DAO, any type of DAO, and some of them get it right, I think, but in the end, the final decision is taken by the people that own most tokens and not as one person, one vote.
Right.
So, there are still some little things here and there when you're like, oh, this is where it goes wrong. And it's not how it's supposed to be. So in the end, I think new layers of economy will be non-technological first, because first, all these organizations have to align with each other. What are we building and for whom? And we do see so many wrong traits too, for example, hackathons, when they push developers to develop something. But again, we know by history that developers, they're amazing people and very creative people, but they do not know about users, about strategy. And that's where a lot of developments are just in the graveyard because no one is using it. No one understands how to use it and why it was built in the first place. And maybe it's a genius solution for something, but they don't know how to explain. And we see Web3 is just feeding this wrong, like, encouraging this behavior that is again leading nowhere. We end up with tech that's doesn't have traction because people just don't know why they should switch from easy way to even more complicated way and start dealing with crypto wallets and stuff, so etc etc. But in the end, I think the best way to engage with Web3, and that's what we advise to everyone, is to find your community of people. You have, again, your personal interest as a human, where you want to grow, what do you want to contribute to, and start looking and researching communities that are, in your interest, and feeling if the people in the community give you the right energy. Yeah, the beauty of Web3 is that a lot of open communication is happening too. So you can either join calls, like team calls even, or, of course, Twitter spaces are there too, but I prefer more, internal calls because that's where you can really understand, is it my people or not even, maybe the idea and everything is awesome and you're like reading through it like, oh, I want to contribute to DEI, or I want to contribute to refi. Oh, I can get a job in this. Oh, there are grants too, because there are these opportunities coming from the communities. But before jumping into any commitments, do your research and take time with your research and really feel, the vibe of that community and whether the people there resonate with you.
And bounce your ideas off people with different skill sets that are your people, that match on values with you. Like, there are lots of genius developers out there, but they're coding the same thing as has been coded many times before. If they do come up with something unique and different, they'll launch it as a product because of their ego. They'll make themselves a CEO when they should be CTO. And then we look at tons of Web3 websites all the time, and we see them, and it's like, the world's first on-chain, blah, 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 refi, DeFi, blah, 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 gaming, GameFi thing, and we're like, I don't know what it does, right? If they had somebody
but
in their
it's all the words,
Yeah, all the buzzwords, and then they wonder why nobody's signing up for it. Yeah, if you get someone in your community that is a great storyteller and matches with your values and understands technically what you're doing, but can translate that into the language of the people that you want to come and use the solution. And it's about having a community. It's always about that, but you must always make sure that you connect with everyone that you're working with on values. And as we say, only work with people you want to hug. If there's something you got when you go near them that is like, don't want to hug them, then they probably are not your people.
People first.
People first. So talking about people and you guys, so what's ahead for you now this year? What adventures are you on to?
Well, we've got a curation of a bunch of experiences, not the ones that we said before, not the logo on the materials and a 5-minute shout out at the dinner you sponsored and all this boring crap. We've got some really nice experiential things that we're bringing to Dexforce Festival in Barcelona, which is where we saw you last year. So we're curating a bunch of experiences. We're also doing our joint keynote there at Dexforce. So that's something we've got coming up. We're working on a bunch of other projects. Working on a physical project here in Asturias in North Spain, which we'll tell more details on another time. But we're building something interesting and physical here. And lots of other cool stuff as well coming up.
Yeah, I think this end of the year, it's a big focus on finally bringing confusion and joy a little bit forward to life too. So we're preparing a launch campaign. Cool. So we can actually, showcase the use cases we've done and, a little bit open up more doors because I think we are also ready for it and we are feeling happy with our traction. So we can really state that, yes, creators and empowering creators and connecting them to brands, it's the way to go. We believe that art and love will save the world. So, basically bringing those experiential parts to bigger events and conferences. We're also creating our own immersive show where we're just bringing all creators that we love, we know, we help, and we are creating one show about life. So it's going to be called Life Immersive Inception. Stay tuned for that too.
Yeah.
Okay.
So that's something very exciting. And yeah, we have a few art and education projects too. So actually bringing arts into schools.
Yes.
And finally solving that problem of defund, like as arts are very defunded in schools, but we found a new way which connects art, technology, science together in an educational platform which kids can use at school. So that's something very, very exciting too, because
Nice.
when you know that young generations are the ones that are, getting next
Yeah.
to basically drive our planet, and we do know that kids are different, Generation Z and Alpha, they are very different. So we want to bring also more inspiration towards them, how we can take care of each other, take care of the planet, preserve what we learned, and just stand with good values.
Cool. So art and love will save the world, and all
And
those
coffee.
projects you're in 24 having 24 hours a day. Incredible. Looking
Yeah.
forward to follow that.
48 hours would be better, but
No. We're good with our time management.
definitely.
And actually, that's another thing. Like this whole 16 hours a day, 7 days a week, ship early, fail fast, all of that is bullshit. You have to take play breaks between tasks. You have to enjoy yourself, and you've got to enjoy life, and you've got to enjoy the amazing people you're with and the amazing people around you. And actually, that keeps you mentally healthier. You will produce better products with fewer errors. You won't have to redo the work the next day, because pretty much everything most people do, if they're stuck in front of their screen all day after 3 p.m. each day, is erroneous and needs redoing the next day anyway. So it's absolute waste of your time. So we're good at time management. We're good at mixing it up. It's why we don't have this race to the weekend to enjoy the weekend, and then you don't enjoy the weekend because Monday to Friday you're working so hard that Saturday, Sunday is just all personal chores. And if you're in Germany, none of that includes going to the supermarket because they're shut on Sunday. So you have to do that on Saturday. We don't do that. We work a bit, we play a bit every day, public holidays or not. And, there's no 6-month race to have a 2-week vacation or all of that sort of stuff. Like, mix it up, keep yourself mentally and physically healthy. And actually, you'll find that you'll be able to do a lot more and a lot more accurately and a lot more inspired and a lot more creatively than if you just sit in front of your computer and knock out tasks all day. So we do pretty well on that.
Great, I'm glad to hear. Just a perfect way to finish our episode before 3 p.m. so you can close down your computer and phone. And Ksenia and Stewart, thank you so much for coming and sharing your experience and your views on life, on Web3, on the ecosystems. I think we learned a lot today. Lots of love, and everyone who wants to learn more about Ksenia and Stewart, the links are in the podcast description. And see you next time. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much.